Hello my chess friends, long time no seen, but now I have returned with another video. This time we're gonna have a Nimzovich Larsen Attack, ready opening Nimzo Larsen Attack, in between two very powerful grandmasters. You can read on the screen, it's about Magnus Carlsen versus Levon Aronian. So this game just happened on the 29th of June at the Global Chess League and event, and you're going to appreciate how psychological the game of chess can be, that even the many consider the strongest chess player on the planet can blunder right at the very end. So indeed, time pressure and the emotionally charged games possibly could push a very strong chess player to making reckless, sloppy moves. So let's just take it step by step now. Okay, so we're gonna start now the game with b3. Let me get myself closer. b3 and d5. Okay, so I just put black's perspective here, so for you to see how Levon Aronian managed to win this game versus Magnus Carlsen. So knight f3 and bishop g4, just to make it clear for you guys now. Of course, bishop f5 could have been played, but Levon Aronian chose to do bishop g4. It is important before you push the e6, which is a very good stuff to do anyway, because you want to get the other bishop out. So firstly, get the bishop out, the bishop on c8, moves out, and then you could do, indeed, e6. So firstly, get the guy out, get the bishop, and then you're going to push the e6. That is important for us to understand. Develop the piece, don't block the mill, especially the bishops. So h3, bishop h5, d3, and h6. Now you may wonder what's this h6 things. It could be a couple of things. Amongst them, if there is any g4, you may want to just nicely play bishop to g6. And if there is any knight further harassing, you may want to just simply drop the bishop on h7 and retaining for that bishop a very nice attacking diagonal. So g4, bishop played on g6 here, knight to e5, and bishop to h7. Obviously, not a very wise stuff to ignore the knight's attack and leaving the bishop on g6, because if white knight were to take, the other pawn takes, and actually black is going to have a weakness on g6. So you don't want to have that kind of thing. Plus, the bishop is quite nice and aggressive on that diagonal. Drop them on h7, and I think it's good. Now, of course, black might have played knight b to d7. Not a problem. The game continues. And this is where we are. Probably you've noticed that the bishop on b2 really eyes the g7. So you can't develop the bishop on f8 just yet. You need to come up with a plan. And we are going to reveal the plan after c6 and queen to e2. Magnus probably prepares castle long, castle queen side here, so you may keep this in mind when you yourselves want to play this kind of ready opening Nimzo Larsen attack. You may want to just play exactly in the same fashion. Nothing wrong. It's not just because of that Magnus lost. We're going to get there. This is just a psychological thing that proves one more time how fallible the human mind is. Queen to c7, f4. Obviously, f4 wants to be moving down and disrupting this pawn structure sooner or later. So f6, this is the find. This is the move that was necessary to be played if Levon wanted to develop the last minor piece. Very healthy principle of the opening. Get all your minor pieces off the back rank. So in this very position for black here, you need to try to stop the bishop on b2 hitting you on g7, and now the bishop on f8 can play. So castle long, queen to a5. Yeah, okay, you could have castled yourself. Black could have also made the castle on the queen side, but queen a5 first, and probably it is obvious now the queen on a5 wants to capture the pawn on a2. Magnus doesn't defend it just yet, but he played e4 first. And now you might say, yeah, but I don't care. I'm still going to take in here on a2. Actually, that would be incredibly bad for black if Levon played that, because after queen takes, white would have taken. And probably you've noticed that the pawn on e6 is pinned by the queen. You can't take it back. Okay? and queen had opened the e file. And if you take back with this guy, queen is going to take on e6. It's already looking not very good for black here. So you can't take on a2. First, you need to take care of this weakness on e6. So he castled long. Now you got no problem, no checks. And immediately Magnus moved king to c1 over to b because he wants to defend the a2 square. Very important, and pawn. Another principle now, ladies and gents, bishop to a3. What does that mean? You are neutralizing your opponent's pieces that defend the king. So in our position here, this bishop on b2, it's practically the main defendant of the y king. And now if you could just move your f8 bishop, challenge that y bishop, and perhaps take him off the board, would be even for the better. Now the dark squares in this position now belong to the black queen. So very, very good play by Levon Aronian as well. Trading in the center, rook moved over to rook h to e because now he wants to just probably putting the rook to being active on the e column. Pushing the f5 now. Knight f3, trying to create some outpost. So the knight probably, just wants to insert itself a little bit in the half territory of their opponent. Takes first on g4, h takes, rook goes for the weakness now. This guy is hanging, so go for the weaknesses. Every single time you spot them, go for them. Attacking on g4, knight on d7, activates itself, knight f6, now wants to go to g4 and take that pawn, which Magnus very nicely defends with bishop on h3. No problem whatsoever. Now, you may wonder, why did Levon push the d5 to d4? Well, you need another outpost for the black knight, because currently can't move here, can't play there, can't move here. There's no point to get a knight back, so he looked for active ways to actually make a little space, because probably you've already noticed that this black knight would be incredibly happy if they were to be arriving at c3. Very important, because there'll be a very deadly fork here. Not mentioning the pressure on a2. Okay, so now Magnus goes for harassing that knight, takes and takes knight to g5. This bishop is being hit, but very elegantly Levon drops the bishop on g8. And now we're getting into the time scramble again and again. Time pressure always takes its toll, even on the toughest and the sharpest, the most brilliant minds always face this demon of time pressure in chess. And now Levon plays something like rook to d5, which obviously wants to tell us that the intention would be rook battery, making a battery here with the queen and attacking on a2. Very many things would have worked for Magnus Carlsen at this point, which is having 1 minute and 39 seconds, as you can read on the screen right now, ladies and gents. And almost anything would have worked for white here. Starting with queen e7, queens would have come off eventually. c3, c4, queen e7, they would have worked. Mind you, we've got 1 minute 39 and 1 minute 16 for black. Full psychological errors. Full issue with the time pressure here. Always happen, okay? Even for the best. And now, instead of playing any of these moves that I mentioned, queen e7, c3, c4, rook c1, and then again c-pawn would have had to be moved forwards just to allow the queen to defend here, in case you wonder what's with the c3, c4. Magnus actually played after 1 minute and 10 seconds thinking. So the guy really had some seconds to spare and contemplate the position, finding the solution, and he goes for the worst of them all. Blunder. Bishop takes the rook. Blunder. After 1 minute and 10 seconds of internally deliberating and thinking and analyzing, the great Magnus just took the rook with the bishop. Human mind is fallible. I mean, it is what it is. It happens. And now, obviously, after Levon took on d5, he just resigned because it's just unstoppable. You either get checkmated or you lose the queen. You choose which one is worse. And at this level, there is absolutely no point. Knight c3 is now unstoppable. c3, c4, they no longer work. Now you won't matter. Knight comes on c3, checks the king, attacks the queen, and not mentioning the a2 threat. So not too much to do for white here. But I think this is very instructive, and if we can just understand the condition that the human mind finds itself in, when time is very scarce, time is not in sufficient amount, you might be probably likely to doing this kind of errors. So anyways, guys, that was the Reti opening Nimzo Larsen attack. Subscribe if you find this one helpful to any degree. Follow me on Twitch. I'm streaming quite often in the evening times at the minute, 7, half 7 in the evenings, weekdays, and we can have some friendly games and we can do some puzzles and discuss chess topics like you've just witnessed now. Thank you very much for being here. Now, guys, I'll see you soon with more chess videos.